We are about to listen to the member for Enfield's first contribution here in the State Parliament. I am sure it is the first of many, and the member for Enfield should be accorded the normal courtesy and respect that we afford to people delivering their first speech on this very important occasion. The member for Enfield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and congratulations on your recent elevation to the role. I'd like to begin by recognising that we meet on the lands of the Kaurna people, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. My story starts with my family. It starts with my Ukrainian grandfather who made his way to Australia in 1948, first settling at Islington, living in a tent and working in the railway yards. Before this, my family spent time captured in a Nazi slave labour camp, where two of my aunts were born, including one of them who's here today, followed by several years in a displaced persons facility, escaping the Soviets and ruin of Europe. The family were peasant farmers. They had little formal education, but they believed in a bold idea, even in spite of the fact that it attracted persecution. A free nation that didn't yet exist called Ukraine. That dream became a reality in 1991. It's been attacked ever since, but Ukrainians live and die for it to this day. And to quote the Ukrainian national anthem, "Shne ye v'malya Ukraini ni slava ni vola," the glory and will of Ukraine has not yet perished. In an earlier but not dissimilar story, my mother's side of the family left Ireland as peasant farmers in the 1840s. Like the Ukrainians, the Irish native tongue was outlawed, land seized, rights taken and customs prohibited. For the Irish and Ukrainians, religion, language, dance, song and their very spirit became a symbol of resistance and hope. Like the Ukrainians, even in spite of war, colonial oppression and genocide, the Irish held on to the same dream: to live in a free and prosperous nation that had the right to determine its place in the world and future for its children. While both sides of my family never lost faith in their dreams, it was in Australia that they found their refuge and home. Madam Speaker, in no way is this actually a remarkable story in modern Australia. In fact, right across our state, and especially in Enfield, it's more than common. This diversity and resilience is exactly what makes our country as remarkable as it is truly marvellous. These stories are shared in my community every day, and like my grandparents' story, I believe they represent the best of our country. The dreamers full of bold ideas for their future, young parents with big hopes for their children, seizing the opportunity to work hard and get ahead, but also understanding the need to give back. I believe that it was through this Ukrainian and Irish spirit that my parents handed down to me a few important values that are in my DNA. Standing up for the little guy and the underdog, detesting racism and the belittling of the outsider, giving a voice to those in need and without one when you can. And also to never be afraid to dream and push an idea, even if it tests the conventional orthodoxy. I want to thank my parents, Mary and Roman, as well as my brothers, Nick and Elliot, and their wives, Sophie and Talia, and my parents' first grandchild, Viv, who's here today as well, for their support and for nurturing these values in our family. Recently, my parents joked that they actually gave me a lot more than just values, and that's absolutely true. With a beautiful home, loving family, and lots of music and sport, they gave my brothers and I an idyllic middle-class Australian upbringing, which is exactly what I hope to make sure is accessible for future generations. As the son of two teachers, education's at the heart of my family's story and my parents' determination to make a positive impact on the world. That's why I'm absolutely driven to make sure everyone in my community has access to quality education and the ability to reach their full potential. Australian poet Les Murray wrote, "You can't fake a prayer." To the Jesuit fathers, Josephite nuns and Ukrainian clergy who are here today, thank you for the values and education you've given me. I think it's best captured in the words of Isaiah chapter 1 verse 17. Learn to do good, seek justice, rescue the oppressed, defend the orphan, plead for the widow. These lessons began having their biggest impact on me in my teenage years, which also coincided with the Howard government's efforts to legislate work choices. My parents weren't Labor Party members or particularly strong activists. They were ordinary Australians, but they were union members. I remember our political discussions around the kitchen table from this time very well. They mostly centred on the concept of fairness. During this time, I also remember the Jesuit priests at school that took in Afghan refugees, educated them, and stood up to the federal government to give a voice to those who had none. These experiences politicised me. And so, when I was a teenager, I joined the Australian Labor Party. And the vehicle that I found to live these values that my family and teachers taught me was the trade union movement. When I was 20 years old, a couple of former MPs, Nick Bolkus and Kevin Foley, introduced me to the Premier, Peter Malinauskas, when he was Secretary of the Shop Assistants Union, the SDA. And as a painfully earnest young man, I remember vividly telling him that I wanted to work in the Labor movement to try and help people and make a difference. And he responded by telling me that if you believe that in your heart of hearts, then you're in the right place. I want to thank the Premier for being a mentor and for his role in shaping my life and career in the Labor movement. Over nearly 10 years working at the SDA, the RWDSU, and in the United States, and in private practice as an industrial lawyer, I learned a valuable lesson: the importance of having honest conversations with workers about their challenges and their ambitions for the future. I want to take a moment to thank SDA Secretary Josh Peake. You taught me how to organise and campaign. You've been a mentor and a friend, and we're very lucky to have you leading the way in the union movement across the country. From representing workers in supermarkets, fast food outlets and warehouses, to poultry plants, cereal manufacturers and trucking yards, this work was all about pursuing economic justice through fair wages, better childcare, improved sick leave, and work health and safety protections during the pandemic. I'll always carry those experiences with me. Consoling a worker in the shopping centre car park before he had to go home to tell his family he'd lost his job. Fighting tooth and nail for compensation for another because faulty safety gear led him to collapse and suffer a brain injury at work. Or campaigning in the US to end tip wages for car wash workers who had suffered exploitation for generations. I had the privilege of having some very special experiences in the US made possible by many amazing union leaders, especially Camille Rivera and RWDSU President Stuart Applebaum. Perhaps the most important experiences for me were the campaigns for voters' rights in Georgia, helping create better protections for workers, many of whom lost their lives during the pandemic, and union campaigns at Amazon warehouses in Alabama. For me, entering Parliament simply means continuing this work, except now on the political wing of our movement. And that means remaining focused on economic justice and delivering for workers and middle-class families trying to get ahead. I take a moment to reflect on that word movement. It's something we have that no other political party in Australia can claim. It means we have a structure that provides for an enduring connection to working Australians. And it means we have a set of values that, even in spite of risks and disputes, holds us together now and for the long term. For me, the beauty of our movement is we're not a protest group. Our objective is governing and making the hard decisions that define lives. From a young age, I've always been drawn to the reforming ethos of the Australian Labor Party, which in my view is best captured by the words of Irish playwright George Bernard Shaw, who wrote, "Some see things and say why, others dream of things that never were and ask why not." At its best, the Labor Party uses this imagination to tackle the big problems and unleash the ambitions of working Australians by asking why not. From making sure everyone can access a doctor, ensuring dignity in retirement, or giving injured workers fair compensation, Labor asked why not and made these novel concepts, these ambitions, a reality. I'm proud to be a member of the Malinauskas Labor government that lives out this reformist ethos every day, with things like re-establishing the Housing Trust and legislating industrial manslaughter to saving Wyler and implementing 3-year-old preschool. As a member for Enfield, I never have to look far to remind myself what our community contributes to our state and what it rightfully expects of me. Enfield can be summarised in 3 words: fair, hard-working and ambitious. The people of Enfield have delivered important growth in this state's history before, especially at the British Tube Mills factory, the Jepps Cross abattoirs and massive housing trust developments. Before the Second World War, the area was mainly farmland. After the Second World War, it became the original northern suburbs. The population of the city of Enfield increased from 5,200 to 53,000 in just 19 years, between 1934 and 1953. As Bob, known to many here, one of my constituent supporters who will tell you, when he and his father were building their home in the 50s on Blamey Avenue in Broadview, with their own hands making their own bricks, they'd look down the end of the street to the north and see only paddocks. That's the Australian dream, but so too is economic growth and the opportunity it provides. More important than the jobs and development were the beautiful communities and neighbourhoods, the places of worship, sports clubs and schools that gave people a sense of belonging. It's a legacy that grows and endures today, and it's why my wife Emily and I, as we expect our first child later this year, are excited to raise our family in this beautiful community. Like earlier times, the people of Enfield understand the opportunities before our state, as well as the challenges we need to address to seize them. It's a fact that was made pretty clear during the recent election, when they endorsed Labor's plan to help everyone access the dream of owning a home, to create more and better paying jobs, and unlock the state's industrial transformation. I'm especially proud that I'm able to make a contribution to the state's industrial growth as Assistant Minister for Copper, Steel, Critical Metals and Minerals. I see this as a core part of my job as the member for Enfield. I think of Jim from Branson Avenue, who works as a mechanical fitter at every smelter in the state, or Steve from the Kilburn Footy Club, who works for a major steel distributor that got Australian-made steel back in its sheds because our government's intervention in Whyalla, or the crew at McKechnie Foundry on Grand Junction Road that are now distributing its iron castings into global defence supply chains because of our government's support. In an uncertain global economy, having a plan matters more than ever. So too does a willingness to carefully assess rapidly changing conditions and to re-evaluate economic and policy orthodoxy. I'm especially proud of the contribution I've been able to make previously working as an advisor to the Premier and working closely with the Treasurer Tom Koutson-Tonis through the government's intervention at the Whyalla Steelworks, navigating the challenges facing Port Pirie, establishing a state strategic gas reserve and unlocking the state's copper potential. These industrial projects are of national strategic importance. They're globally significant in their ambition. The history and future of manufacturing retains a special place in our nation. It plays a big role in my electorate. Through the pandemic and global disruptions, we've had timely reminders about this. It remains challenging now as it was in the past, but I think it should be remembered that it took the Playford government and its predecessors more than 50 years to chase and secure BHP's promise to begin processing the state's vast iron ore resources into steel. With the right patience, planning and imagination under the stewardship of the Premier and Treasurer, our government can unlock comparable opportunities today. No one gets to this place on their own. First and foremost, I wouldn't be here without my amazing wife, Emily Farrell. Emily, you've believed in me more than I've believed in myself. You've sacrificed your own dreams so that I can chase my own. Thank you for believing in me, supporting me, and always standing by my side. You're my most trusted advisor, my harshest and wisest critic, and the person I love spending time with more than anyone else in the world. Thank you for always being there for me, including getting out the red pen and helping with the many drafts of this speech. To my co-campaign directors, Mick and Johnny Atkinson. Mick liked to say that he was the Governor-General. I guess that made Johnny the Prime Minister. And like our Westminster system, they were both very different roles, but played an equally important function together. Mick and Johnny, you're both brilliant political minds, and I feel very lucky to have you run my campaign. To Rosie Falco and all of the West Street crew, you're not campaign volunteers, you're friends. We spent many late nights together campaigning away in Rosie's garage, enjoying rich culinary experiences, robust debates, and every European liqueur ever invented. Thank you for your support and running an amazing campaign for me, especially a shout out to Brendan and Sav, who have now joined my staff. To Don and Nympha Farrell, I believe you have two great achievements. Raising three amazing daughters, one of whom I'm lucky enough to call my wife, and having an enormous impact on the public life of this state and country. Your record of public service and sacrifice is an inspiration. I said earlier that I believe that my Ukrainian and Irish ancestry played a big role in shaping me. And as Emily and I expect our first child, I look forward to adding a double dose of Irishness and my mother-in-law's mighty Filipino spirit to the mix, and to see the amazing impact our first daughter will have on the world. To all of the Ben family, Maria, Bill, Sonia, Tressie, Emil, Sophie and Millie, as well as the Farrells, especially Mary, James, Tess, Jono, Andy, Erin and Lee, thank you for clicking into gear and supporting my campaign at such short notice. I'd also like to thank my school and uni mates who are here today, and the Bush Bash running group that continues to make a big impact in South Australia. I'd like to thank my predecessor in Enfield, Andrea Michaels, for all of her support, as well as my opponents who are engaging and gracious, and even laid down their arms to join me for a pint of West End at the Labor sub-branch election night party. I want to thank my many dear friends and mates from the SDA and the Labor movement, Eamon and Emily Burke, Sonia and Dan Romeo, Reggie Martin, Marielle Smith, Amarjeet Grul, Tung No, Tom Carrick-Smith, Jared Dwyer and Jordan Mumford. Thank you to Sam McIntosh at the TWU and Billy Ulrich at the HSU. To Gary Henderson and the Australian Workers Union, thank you for the honour of working closely with your members, especially in Whyalla and Port Pirie. We had three pillars on the Enfield campaign: eat well, have fun and win. And now I can officially say that we've achieved all three. Over the last 2 days, I've been looking across the chamber at that portrait of Premier Playford and reflecting on a little bit of Ben family folklore. When my Ukrainian family later settled at Norton Summit, my aunts would walk down the steep road to get to primary school. My grandfather didn't have a car at the time. He used to ride his bike to work at Islington. But every now and then, an impressive, shiny government vehicle would pull up, and a wily old cherry farmer from up the road, Premier Tom Playford, would stop and generously give my aunties, recently arrived Ukrainian refugees, a ride to school down the hill. I think there's something to take from that humility and sense of welcoming that reminds us that Australia is the greatest country in the world. Now, there are only two things left to do. Quote Bob Dylan for my father, and so may our hearts always be joyful. And second, to work hard, get on with the job, and remember exactly why the community elected me to this place. My pledge is to work my guts out, get results, and deliver for our community. Thank you.